Introducing the Garmin G1000. Unlike today, traditional cockpit layouts include an assortment of analog instruments. These instruments are displayed on vacuum-driven or electrical-driven steam gauge instrument dials, which would provide the pilot with primary instruments necessary for flight. These instruments would include your airspeed indicator, your attitude indicator, your altimeter, your turn coordinator, your heading indicator, and your vertical speed indicator. These instruments are known as your primary instruments or your six-pack, located in a traditional cockpit setting. Unlike this, modern cockpit displays are displayed on what's called a glass cockpit through the primary flight display or PFD located on the left. On the right we have our multifunction display, MFD, and below we have secondary instruments or backup steam gauges in case these displays would fail. All this together incorporates great redundancy and situational awareness that the pilot gets to utilize during the flight. On the left, we see that the G1000 PFD, we have the airspeed indicator tape on the left-hand side. Coupled with this, we have our altimeter located on the right side. Our vertical speed indicator next to the altimeter. And our HSI, which is our new and improved heading indicator, which also provides GPS and VOR navigation built in. And all the way at the top we have our turn coordinator. These coupled together provide the same instruments that the six-pack configuration or traditional steam gauge instruments utilize in different positions along the screen, with the attitude indicator located in the foreground provides fantastic situational awareness and includes all the relevant data in one spot. In addition, the PFD houses communications in the top hand right for comms 1 and 2, and navigation for our VOR radios 1 and 2. With this on the lower left, the PFD also houses on the bezel our FMS, Flight Management System, coupled with our autopilot controls. As seen below, the Garmin G1000 system is a marvel in avionics technology, being able to incorporate traditional round dial steam gauge instruments in a much more user-friendly interface. Located on the left, we see the airspeed tape depicted. As we increase our airspeed, like so, we see the number on the airspeed tape begin to rise. Just as it rises, on the right of that we can see a pink gauge showing us what the approximate airspeed is going to be at the rate of ascent. We can also see that the pitch, the attitude indicator in the foreground, is showing a nose up indication with our airspeed rising, indicating a climb. Just as we can raise the airspeed, we can also show a descent or a decline as the nose begins to come down. It shows us coming more level with the horizon, indicating a steadier climb, or rather a level off. On the right side of the screen we see our altimeter tape. Our altimeter tape depicts the current altitude that the aircraft is at. Right now it's showing we are passing 1,500 feet. Next to that we notice a 650-700 indication, showing us our vertical speed, or the feet per minute that we are climbing. The pink tape on the altimeter itself shows our rate of climb and gives us a good indication of where we'll be at in the next 5 to 10 seconds. Right now we're climbing at a rate of 1,500 feet. If I lower the nose just slightly past 10 degrees, it will become a lot less. To do that, I can turn off the autopilot and change my pitch configuration to get me a lower vertical speed to slowly increase my climb. But I also can re-engage my autopilot on the controls on the left. If I re-engage the autopilot and hit altitude for a flight level change on the bottom right of the screen, we will see that the Garmin GPS system will auto-anticipate and capture a best climb for 93 knots as seen in the top tape where it says GPS, autopilot, and flight level change. In addition to that, we see below our HSI. Our HSI is also what we would see traditionally as our heading indicator. That noise is now showing us that we are 1,000 feet before our predicted altitude or our set altitude. On the HSI below, we see our current heading 265. We also have our heading bug on the right, which we can change manually. This can go to the right or to the left. If we click in, it will set our current heading with the heading bug and keep it aligned. Just to continue the climb, we're going to continue climbing nice and steadily to 4,000. Try and get a decent feet per minute going here. And we see the aircraft stabilizing around 500 feet per minute for our vertical speed, indicating a nice climb. To the left, as I mentioned before, we can see our autopilot controls. The autopilot and the flight director engages the autopilot system. Below that we have heading mode for tracking a heading based off of the heading bug. Our navigation mode, which we're using right now, tracking a specific course or airway based off of a flight plan. Approach mode, vertical speed mode. Approach mode allows us to connect and hook up with a RNAV GPS approach where the autopilot will couple with the approach path that we programmed in and we'll run the approach. And vertical speed and flight level change help us change altitudes while in flight while using the autopilot. We see the GPS flashing above, indicating that it's trying to capture 4,000 feet. And as it blinks now, it just captured 4,000. Currently we are 6.3 miles away from Kennedy VOR, going at 96 knots. And to speed up the process just a bit, I will increase my airspeed to get us around a nice cruise of about 110 knots. There we go. Airspeed's coming up now. Coupled with it, the G1000 also incorporates a flight plan. As we can see on the right, we have our flight plan blinking. I can input different waypoints by going into the waypoint mode, selecting up and down, and inputting different nav aids here. And as we can see, they'll appear on the right as we type in the different nav aids. To show this in a more complete view, down below I've inputted a flight plan over to Poughkeepsie, and we can see below all of the entire airway as well as each navigation point plugged in, beginning with our departure origin at Republic Airport on Long Island and ending all the way on the bottom with our airport at KLNS in Pennsylvania. In addition to this, in addition to this, the Garmin G1000 also incorporates different ways of communication. Located at the top, we see our top right of the screen, we see our communication data. We have two communication radios, communication 1 and comm 2. The green indicates the frequency that we are actually using, that's active, the people that we are talking to as well as receiving from. And to the right of that we see our standby frequency 12005 for approach. Below that in comm 2 we can put in other radio frequencies for ground control or our ATIS, and it's a great multifunction system giving us full capability. On our top left we also see our navigation frequencies, navigation 1 and navigation 2 at the top of the screen. These frequencies include the ability to plug in VORs as well as ILSs to run instrument approaches. For instance, on the top left I have 1177 as a Deer Park VOR, and I can swap those navigations by hitting the swap button on the top left, and it'll swap my Deer Park VOR in, and the DPK indicates that that is the VOR and that it is identified. In addition to this, while using the VOR, the G1000 also incorporates our CDI button at the bottom. This swaps it over to VOR 1 and VOR 2, allowing us to use those features. Because I switched that, I need to re-engage the GPS, and I'll hit navigation mode on the right, and it'll set in the GPS again and continue us along our route. Additional features of the G1000. On the bottom we have a table. That table shows map mode, PFD options, OBS, CDI, ADF and DME, XPDR, which is our transponder, the ident button, timer reference, nearest, and alerts. Beginning on the right we see our map button. By clicking this we can change the layout and incorporate a cutout of the MFD on the bottom left of the screen. With this we can change different features of this map. We can also incorporate it with the G1000NXI only on the HSI instrument, which is a really cool feature. We can also switch over to traffic mode and incorporate traffic on the bottom left of the screen as well, which is really cool. To turn it off we just go to the left and hit map off, and back, and again. PFD options are really interesting. They include a wind option, option 1, which is depicted right below the heading indication next to the airspeed tape. Shows us the wind direction in a heading crosswind configuration. Option 2 shows a angled singular wind direction, and option 3 gives you a general course of where the wind's coming from and the airspeed. Besides that, PFD options also include bearing 1 and bearing 2, which allow me to place the GPS or navigation. As we see, nav 1 is 28.2 nautical miles away for Deer Park, and bearing 2 would allow me to put the GPS distance next to it, which is 8.2 miles to our next waypoint Tickle. And we can also see that all the way at the top of the screen. In addition to that, we have XPDR mode. XPDR mode allows us to set our code. We are at 1200 VFR. To change that, we can hit code and enter in a new code respectively, and it'll appear next to the XPDR. To ident, we can ident, and it'll let air traffic control let them know where we are in relation. We also have a cool feature, timer reference, next to that, giving us the ability to set timers for VOR distances or holds for instruments. And the nearest button, which is a great feature in case of emergency. It includes the nearest airport in relation to us at any one given time, the nearest being at the top, and the less nearest being closer to the bottom, as depicted where we started from Farmingdale, and our closest airport is KNOP. Alerts tab will show us any alerts going on with the aircraft, as well as any failures, and any enunciators of anything going wrong will appear here as well. In addition, the G1000 PFD also incorporates a menu option. The menu option has many different features, allowing to control the display brightness for the PFD and the MFD module. Under flight plan, we can see our current flight plan, but we can also go to procedure right next door, which will allow us to select an approach, an arrival procedure, or a departure procedure for the airport. As seen, we are heading towards Lancaster, and this allows me to plug in, say I'm using runway 13, the RNAV GPS. I can hit enter, and for now I can hit vectors, put in my minimums as required, and that will allow me to either load or activate. Because we're not there yet, we would load it, and that allows me to add an approach all the way at the bottom of my flight plan. In addition to this, we can also see how the G1000 has our flight director emblem in the background. This depicts the attitude that the GPS would like the aircraft to be at. On the top left, for our volume, we can click on the volume knob and either increase or decrease our volume for our communication, as well as increase or decrease our volume for our navigation. If we hit the volume knob for the navigation, we'll see an ident button, which will allow us to listen to our VOR Morse code to properly identify the VOR. And with this is a good overview of the operations and functions of the PFD on the Garmin G1000NXI. The MFD, just as the PFD did, on the right top side includes a second set of communications 1 and 2 readouts, and on the left we have nav 1 and 2. Unlike the PFD, on the MFD we see our engine instruments depicted, beginning with manifold pressure if applicable, RPM gauge, oil pressure and temperature with fuel flow gauge above, fuel quantity gauges for left and right tanks, and amps and volts readouts for the aircraft electrical system. The MFD, as seen below, or also known as the multifunction display, is important because it provides pilots with a customizable screen to assess additional information beyond the critical flight data on the primary flight display. This allows pilots to view navigation maps, weather radar, traffic information, system status, and other vital details all on one screen, significantly enhancing their situational awareness and decision-making capabilities during flight. One crucial element of this is located on the left, which shows us our engine systems. Right below the navigation page on the top left, we can see our manifold indicator. Below that, our RPM gauge showing 1700, our fuel flow or gallons per hour, oil pressure, oil temperature, EGT, exhaust gas temperature, and our fuel quantity gauges for the left and right fuel tanks. Below that, we can also see our electrical bus for our main electrical, and our standby bus, or for our standby battery. Other features of this page, we all notice some familiarization and similarities with the PFD. We can see that the column on the left side of the bezel is exactly identical to the PFD, allowing us and providing autopilot functionality and control. We have the same features as the PFD with our heading bug, our navigation dial, our altimeter dial, our FMS knob on the bottom right, range description for our map, and a second COM1 and COM2 depiction on the top right of our screen. This is great because it allows both pilots, the pilot in command or captain, as well as the co-pilot in the right seat, who would typically be in front of the MFD, to have dual controls just like they have dual flight controls. This allows for much better situational awareness as both pilots are not reaching over one another to gain access to the systems. In addition, the MFD includes other features like we discussed before. One of it is the engine page. In the engine page, if we go to engine and system down below with the buttons, we can see a much more detailed readout of our engine indication systems. Here we see a numerical value of our oil PSI and our oil temperature, a full vacuum indication, and a fuel flow GPH. Right here we can see where my mouse is circling our fuel calculation. Before the flight, we have a really cool feature. We could hit reset fuel, which brings gallons used to 0, gallon remaining. And for the Cessna 172, we will do 53, so I will take that in minus gallons. If we look to the left, we see the number going down to 53 next to gallon remaining. And it'll show 53 usable gallons for the flight. In addition to that, we can see a lean page, which shows our EGT for our individual cylinder head temperatures for a 6-cylinder configuration. And we can see an assist button, which as we lean the mixture, we can see right next to it the peak with the minus degrees right below. And as we lean, it'll give us a perfect readout and lean configuration for the aircraft while in cruise, which is a really cool feature of the G1000. If we go back, we also have different map options. We have our topography, where we can limit what the map is showing us. We can show full topography, giving us the nice green background in the back and showing us additional features, streams, and rivers that are along our route. In addition, we can change our airways to high or low. We have NEXRAD for any weather radar, weather on our route. And we have a METAR page, which will pull up any METARs for the local airports within the vicinity of our route. In addition, with the detail button on the G1000NXI, we can select 3 levels of detail. And as we noticed there, it took away the nav aids except which was on our flight plan, which helps clean up the screen when we need to, as well as including all details for maximum situational awareness. Just like the PFD, on the left side we can hit flight plan, and this gives us a much larger view of our flight plan and zooms in the map on the left side. This is a great feature because it allows us to see exactly where we were and where we're going. Right now we're between Plexus and Metro, our 2 points. The one on the bottom highlighted in magenta is the waypoint we are going to, and the one at the top side of the arrow is where we came from. And the G1000 gives great depictions, so we're exactly sure of where we're going, as seen by the arrows. Just as on the top, we have our ground speed indication, our directional indication, our course track, and our estimated time en route to our destination, or our next waypoint. In this case, 1 minute and 32 seconds. In the menu, we have additional features where we can collapse our airways, hold at present position, delete flight plan, invert flight plan, and store. And these are great features when we want to catalog what we've done in the G1000, or if we reached our destination and would like to follow the same route, rather than typing an entirely new flight plan, we can just tab down to invert, hit enter, and program in the any changes that ATC gave us. In addition to that, we also have a direct to button just like before, and it's blinking showing that we are going towards Metro right now with a map facing below. We can also see a bigger procedures page, giving us the option to activate vectors to final or activate the approach for the runway that we already picked at LNS in our flight plan, which is really another cool feature. Below that, the G1000 using the FMS knob also provides additional features that the G1000 gives us for the MFD. If we tab over, we can see using the big knob on the bottom right, we can tab over into our FMS and choose different pages. With these different pages, it'll pull up navigation maps, IFR and VFR charts, a traffic map with a 2 mile, 1 nautical mile distance between traffic, weather data link for our Sirius XM weather, and a different view, including a top-down view of where the aircraft's at. With this, moving to the next page, we also have intersection information, specific NDB information for any NDBs near our route, VOR information for the nearest VOR on our track, SBJ, to the north of us, and any user waypoints that we want to specifically put into the system. With this, we also have our auxiliary page giving us a summary of the flight, including trip status, fuel status, and other status that is necessary, including destination altitude, true airspeed, and wind direction. This is a great page to see everything all in one place. Next to that, we also have a few other crucial pages. We have our GPS status page giving us our status for GPS 1 and GPS 2, crucial for instrument flight in IMC. And it also gives us a button at the top to compute RAIM in case we did not have WAS. Speaking of WAS, right next to it, we can see that the WAS button is checked, so we are good for instrument procedures. Moving on, the G1000 MFD also includes a status page for all of the systems. If I tab down, I'm able to see a check mark next to each critical system for the G1000, which shows me that everything's functioning properly and that there's no damage or anything I need to be concerned about. Next to that, it also shows our MFD database for our navigation, which gives us its effective date and its expiration date, telling us 19th of March 2025 that we are within currency. It also gives us information about our airframe above, which are all data points that we can plug into our G1000 when we install it into an aircraft, which is really cool that it customizes to the airplane itself. To tab back to our map, there's a few other things that are crucial to go over. On our map, we can see zoomed in with our topography visible. We see our current points and as well as our destination from where we were. In addition, on our navigation map, we can see the different waypoints in the future. With this, we are also able to zoom in and zoom out. And the G1000 gives us the depiction of how much we're zoomed in. There we can see our route much more closely. And there we can see much more wide-scale view of our route, and if we keep zooming out, we can see the entirety of our route leading over to KLNS Lancaster. If we zoom back in, we can see our aircraft with a blue line in front of it indicating where we are heading to. Because the aircraft's slightly off, we can go to Direct, Mercer, Enter, and Activate, and this will give us a direct turn direct to Mercer, not taking away from our flight plan, but allowing us to get back on course. With this, we also have an elevation view chart on the right that the G1000 provides. And additionally to that, we can go into menu and select Show VSD, which will give us our profile for the entire flight at 4,000 feet, showing us any obstacles and terrain in the area, which is really cool. The NXI also provides traffic for this particular page that we could see at different altitudes which would be placed, as well as the distance between our point that we're going to and our next point. To get that off, we just go to menu and go down to hide VSD, and it returns us back to this page. The G1000 overall is a great tool, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Overall, the Garmin G1000 provides a great avionics suite set up for instrument flight, as well as a much new and improved way of navigating in modern times. With the dual screen redundancy with backup mode in case of failure, the G1000 provides great redundancy and ease of use. Overall, this avionics system is a great choice, and this is an overall view of the G1000 and its capabilities. Thank you for watching this presentation, and have a good day.